Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. If you haven't subscribed already, I hope that you will. And today we are going back in time to 1982. A lot of you who follow my channel already know that typically on my channel we talk about rainbows and unicorns and fun things like that. But not today. We are going to be diverting to a different topic. Today we're going to be talking about a crime that happened in 1982, actually about 40 minutes from my home and 20 minutes from where I currently live. It was involving a young girl who at the time was of her life. She was actually older than me. I was a tween at the time that this happened. And we got to know her for all of these years as Princess Doe. That's because she was discovered on July 15th, 1982, in a cemetery in Blairstown, New Jersey. She was bludgeoned to death. Nobody knew who she was. And then for about 6 months, Princess Doe, they were looking for somebody to identify her, and that never happened. The people of Blairstown got money together and they buried her, and calling her, the first investigators, calling her Princess Doe, because they felt that at some point in her life that she was somebody's princess. Fast forward 40 years to July 15th, 2022, and investigators announced that they were able to identify her. What's so interesting and amazing is the development in technology, especially for DNA. They had extracted some of Princess Doe's DNA. With the advancement in this technology, they were able to find a match with her sister. The 40th anniversary, which was not long ago, identified her as Dawn Olanick, and they also charged a man named Arthur Kinlaw in her murder. We are actually going to take a trip and go to Princess Doe's final resting place, and we are going to pay her a visit. This case has a significance to me because, as many of you know, and I'm sorry about my cat meowing in the background, many of you know I was a journalist, and Princess Doe was one of the stories that I covered during my time in journalism. So this story was dear to my heart, but at the same time, I never got to visit her because either a photographer would go to the cemetery. When there were events, it always happened to land on the anniversary of her death, which was and is my daughter's birthday. Now, knowing that we know the identity of this wonderful young woman whose life ended so tragically and much too soon, we are going to go visit her today. And now, since we know her birthday, which she was born on August 5th, 1964, we will be going in the future on or around her birthday. And sorry about my cat again. So if you're ready to go back in time with me and come along on this journey, and for those of you, as again, I said it's normally rainbows and unicorns. If this video is too much for you, there are other videos you can watch on this channel. But because this is something that I will be covering in the future, not just now. But if you would like to go back in time with me and go to this cemetery, I'd love for you to come along. I'm going to be meeting somebody who has done some things with this case, and it also means a lot to her. And so I'm looking forward to introducing you to her. Before we go, I've got to make a quick stop. Are you ready to go back in time with me? Come on, let's go. So I just made a quick stop to a roadside stand and got a lovely little bouquet for Princess Doe that was made by a local farm. I'm going to bring that with me, and we are going to leave that there for her. Dawn. We're gonna leave these right here for you. I'm so glad that we can finally identify you. Her family left her picture here, and there's actually somebody had put this here. So we're gonna put these flowers here for her. And you can see Princess Doe missing from home, dead among strangers, remembered by all, born, ? Found July 15th, 1982. But now we know who she is, and this is such a lovely way that the town remembered her. And she was found out over there, sadly. So I am here with Jeanette Ayerado, who she founded the Blairstown Museum, and we've gotten to know each other over the years because of the work that I did in journalism and all of the things that she's done. And she's somebody who's I gotten to know and consider a friend, and I'm getting like welled up talking about this, and I'm so grateful because she came here today to show me where Princess Doe is, since I hadn't ever been here before.
To turn the clock back to July of 1982, this row of headstones did not exist. So essentially where the roadway coming this way into the cemetery, where it ends now, it did not end back then. This was a dirt path that led to back here. And off to the right was a shed. And this area was particularly used to like dump extra soil from when they would excavate the ground for burials. So on the morning of July 15th, 1982, a cemetery worker by the name of George Keiss made his way to this area where I was told he was going to relieve himself, and saw what appeared to him to be feet, and that startled him. So the way she was on the incline on the slope here would have been feet facing him and the head towards the ravine. Body was slightly contorted or turned, and there was a skirt, that famous skirt we've all seen with the peacock print, kind of just thrown over her. She wasn't wearing it. She did have a top that had a rip under the breast area, and appeared to be a very thin gold and pearl-like necklace with a cross. It was kind of entangled in her bloody hair. So that's how we found her. Ran across the street to a local store that was open, and used their phone and asked for their assistance to call the police. So that's how she was found. And you know, it's been said so many times that the face was unrecognizable, and it was. The head was removed from the body, sent to the Smithsonian, where they pieced together the fragments, and that's really where we get the first computer generated image of what she looked like. So yeah, I've said it 1,000 times before, it's a classic case of where technology had to catch up to the evidence. They had exhumed her before, they had a femur bone, they had various DNA samples, and it was just a matter of time before DNA testing became so perfected that they were able to pinpoint and trace her back to a living family member and connect those dots. And I believe those dots were connected in February of this year. I think the saddest part, or one of the saddest parts to this particular case for me, and I think for many others, is that she was not reported missing. What you had was 40 years of law enforcement and private investigators and people that are just interested in research like I am, and other web sleuths who were constantly, I know I can speak for myself, constantly comparing the DNA, particularly the dental records that were available to the public. And I found myself scouring through dozens and hundreds of dental records of other missing girls throughout the country from that era, and trying to match, you know, molar fillings, missing teeth, crooked teeth, just kind of doing my own research, and it kind of was all for naught in the long run. It was very interesting for me to do it, and I'm sure for everyone else who did that on their own, whether as a hobby or interest in the case. But we kind of all did it for naught because she was never reported missing. I believe that family, that part of that family unit of that family was estranged from the rest of the family. A month prior to the body being found, she was asked to leave the home by her mother. There had been growing discrepancies and arguments between the two of them. Where DNA caught up to us 40 years later to be able to identify her and get that familial trace back and find the living family member, I think now is where for the police anyway, for investigators, the real hard work, the real investigation comes into play on what exactly happened to her from the moment she left that house. How did she meet up with the alleged murderer, Arthur Kinlaw, who was mentioned at the press conference, and what transpired in that month that she may have been in contact with him or lived with him, or there's several different theories right now on what had happened to her. And then ultimately, what happened the day or night that she was murdered, and how and why was she transported here to Blairstown. It's just shy of 3 hours away from where he lived. And that's quite a way to travel in 1982, particularly. Gas prices were still high. I think they were like $2.70 a gallon coming off of the huge gas shortage we had. From what I understand from detectives, she was murdered here, or at least bled out here because of the amount of blood that was in the soil under her body and under her head from bleeding out. It's hard for me just as an individual to believe that she was put in a vehicle alive, transported 3 hours to be murdered, but left without undergarments, no bra, no underwear, no socks, no shoes. One hand, I believe, had nail polish on it. The other hand did not. No, it's hard for me to believe that someone would make that 6-hour trip with her in the car alive to do that. I always felt that there was another connection to this town. That's always been my belief.
Yeah, I think we'll find out.
And I think that's where the hard investigative work now will come in for them, is to really make that tie. And that he has been he's been served, or in this case, and the investigation is still active. He is currently incarcerated for 2 other homicides. What I always found interesting with this was that his wife was also. She had also served. Donna Kinlaw had served for some time as an accessory or helping of some sort with those murders. And yet, from what I understand, she has not been indicted in this particular murder. She's alive and well and free, and has changed her name and is living in a different part of the country now. So I'm interested to see if she will be indicted also, and what role she may have played in this. But again, that's for law enforcement to figure out. Like, for now, we know that Princess Doe is actually Dawn Rita Olanick. It's for the town and for everyone who's been interested in the case to know that what her face actually looked like and what her name really was, and when she was actually born. Because we always, on the tombstone, always said born with a question mark. And I believe the family is working on getting a new headstone for her, which will actually have her real name. And that'll be a sight to see, to actually be able to walk up to the grave and see August 5th and no longer a question mark.
Definitely. Look at that sweet moth. So we have this little moth that has stopped by to see us here. I do believe in the afterlife, and signs. Definitely signs. Maybe this is a sign. Sometimes they say that they come in form of cardinals or butterflies or maybe moths. I think somebody is happy that we're here. Okay, you can see that. This moth keeps following me and I think is hanging on. Want to come with us, little moth? I wanted to ask Jeanette a bit about what she and the volunteers at the museum have done, because they have really stepped up to the plate and done things to help maintain the memory of Princess Doe, including memorial events and guest events where they've had different people in law enforcement speak. And I think it's just a wonderful thing that they've done to preserve her memory without even knowing who she was until now. And so now going forward, we know that this is Dawn Olanick, who is, we've got a name now. So I don't know, Jeanette, if you could share a little bit about your experience with Princess Doe and what you've done in terms of, and the museum volunteers have done and whatnot.
Thank you for all of that. And I do consider you a friend. So this is easy for me to do because it's really just like having a conversation with a good friend about something and someone that I think has meant so much to both of us. When we created the museum, we really just wanted to highlight Blairstown's history. It was just a group of volunteers. None of us are paid, and back then we were focusing on railroads and dairy farms and how the landscape of the town and county had changed over hundreds of years. When we stumbled on the Princess Doe case, and it was pretty early on in opening the museum, we really wrestled back and forth and had a lot of conversations on what do we do about this, because it is at the time, and still is really, an open investigation. And how do we use the museum to educate the public? Because really that's what the museum was founded for, was to educate the public on various topics. We very carefully always wanted to educate the public on her case. And so like you said, we had numerous presentations, like former investigators and detectives with the Warren County Prosecutor's Office, and former Detective Krantz with the Blairstown Police Department, and it usually would be done annually on or near the anniversary of her passing. And we had a few memorials here at the cemetery, and there were controversial ones and not so controversial ones, but for us we just maintained that importance of educating the public, honoring her, and honoring all the people who 40 years ago in this town came together to give her the burial. Otherwise she would have ended up in just some blank, grave, like in a pauper's grave. So it's really, in honoring her, it's honoring the people from 40 years ago that provided the casket and the flowers and the ground, and then all the detectives over 40 years that kept her name alive and kept the case not so cold. It might have been a back burner case for the county for 40 years, but for other law enforcement officials and web sleuths and other people interested in just researching, true crime stories, it was a front burner issue for them. And I think it continues to be a front burner issue. I'm glad we have a face and a name. And again, I'll say it was just a matter of technology catching up to the DNA. But now the real investigative work comes in and finding out what happened to her when she left her home, and how did she end up in Blairstown, and what exactly happened to her the day or night that she had passed. That's no longer the museum's role. We're just going to continue to honor her. I was glad to hear the family is keeping her here. They did mention getting a new headstone with the name and actual birth and death dates. That would be nice too, to have. I'm sure that if that does not happen in time, the museum and other individuals would pull together money to give her a proper headstone. I'm not sure we would ever remove this one. It would be up to the family really if they want to remove it, but if private citizens were to come together and do a headstone, and many of us have been talking about doing that and reaching out to the family to offer that, I think the right thing to do would be to leave the old one. She really will always be known as Princess Doe.
No, I mean, thank you for all of your commentary about this. And I mean, I think to me what's fascinating too is in Warren County, I mean, there was also the case of the Tiger Lady who was she was also a doe, and they identified her within the same time, like a year.
October of last year, November of last year.
So this is, they've done some really amazing investigative work, I think, and it's just incredible what DNA can put together. And now this young lady who nobody knew who she was, we now know her family.
And the technology aspect of the case is fascinating, because you go back several decades, or 40, 50 years, and the big thing was fingerprints, and then dental records, and then with her, with the exhumation of the body and being able to get the femur bone and some mitochondrial DNA from that, we have grown leaps and bounds from that. I mean, they were doing DNA testing on an eyelash from her that still survived 40 years later. So that's what I mean by technology just catching up and being able to get a family link through an eyelash, or it's grown leaps and bounds. I would like to think that other cold cases out there, not just locally, within the state, but throughout the country, will become a lot more identified. I think a lot of the missing persons will start to be linked better.
I hope so.
And the unidentified bodies linked and so forth. Yeah.
I hope so. And just, I mean, to give some closure to families and also to the person, their soul. I mean, if that's, I mean, this poor young girl, she was only not even 18 years old. She suffered a horrific ending on this earth. And
that's another tragic part, because she was found, within weeks of turning 18, and for all of us, and your daughter has just turned 18. So you think about that moment in your life when you're just a few weeks shy or a few months shy of turning 18. It's such a big deal for many people. You're getting ready for the next stage of your life. Are you going to trade school? Are you going to work or travel, go to college? You're getting a car. Maybe you're in your first real serious relationship. You have your first real job. Your whole life is ahead of you. And I just can't imagine what was going on in her life in that month leading up to her murder, where it's just this really slow diminishing of whatever hopes and dreams she had. And it's just really pairing up and meeting up and getting involved with the wrong people, knowingly and unknowingly. And unfortunately, it happens a lot more often than we think. And in her case, it ended up being a truly tragic ending for her. But we know the face and name, but we don't know, like you had said, we don't really know anything else about her. Yeah. We don't know what her hopes and dreams were, or what her plans after school, after high school would have been, or her family may know, and friends from that time may know, but the rest of us don't know yet. Favorite color, or favorite food, or her favorite hangout spot, I
know. I hope in time we'll be able to learn more about her now that we know who she is.
And really put a person, like a personality to the name.
Because she looks like such a sweet person. Now, I mean, and I will post pictures of, what she looked like in all of those composite shots that they did, all those reconstructions.
And there were so many.
Yeah, and
had her as a blonde and as a brunette and a strawberry blonde and straight hair and curly hair and wavy hair. To me, none of the composites actually captured the essence of what she truly looked like, with the curly hair and the smile.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's so amazing. As we also said, and Jeanette was saying, that this is an active investigation. This is, if you have any information, by the way, when police talk about an active investigation, that means that there are a lot of things they cannot talk about in a case. But if you have any information about Dawn and about this case, and maybe about her final days, anything that you have, even anonymously, you can contact the Blairstown Police Department, the Warren County Prosecutor's Office, or the New Jersey State Police, and this is a whole different end of the investigation.
Correct. An individual who's currently incarcerated, but again, I think their investigative work is now just trying to link him to why the obscure town of Blairstown, 3 hours away. Did he actually know anyone? What time of day that the murder happened? What weapon was used in the commission of the murder? That's still unknown to the general public. And there's theories of what would cause those kinds of injuries, but again, they're just theories at the time. It'll be interesting, I think, for a lot of us when that case actually goes to trial and all that information becomes public. And is there a DNA tie also? Because over the years, the museum was told that there actually was a hair follicle found on her, or hair found on her, that did not match hers, that they were definitive about did not match hers. So it'll be interesting to know if that creates a link to the perpetrator of the murder, or someone who was actively involved in that at that time. So there's a lot of questions, but for now we know who she is. And what she looked like. I think that's a blessing in itself, you
And I'm
know.
just so glad that I finally got to see her. And
It's a happy and a sad moment. And
Yeah,
that's how
it
I
is.
felt that day when I finally got her name. I was happy to know what she looked like and what name she went by when she walked the earth, but at the same time it was really sad because it made it so real. They're just using the name Princess Doe in all of our presentations and exhibits and stuff. It's just kind of like a nickname to a case, you know, to a missing person, and without knowing what she really looked like. And once you get the name, for us anyway, it was just that realization: this is a really real person. It's not just some blank case that web sleuths are looking at, or she was a real person with real hopes and dreams, and they were sadly taken away from her. So the hope is whoever did that would be will see their day in court.
I hope so too. Oh, thank you for taking us
Thank you.
here.
Thank you for coming here, and I mean for all the years of work that you did on it, and private conversations that we had, and the different articles you had. I know it wasn't always easy for you, but you did it, and this is a testament also to journalists like yourself who never gave up, right? And it wasn't just a story. You know, it's not just some traffic report for you. It was a real human interest story, and you took that interest in her over and over again. And even outside of the anniversary, we would like chat and text messages and PMs about it in different cases. And you always stayed vigilant on her case, and I appreciate that more than anything.
We're gonna continue here. Like I said, this channel it's mainly about rainbows and unicorns, but we will be covering and talking about stuff like this as I get information.
And it's a rainbow.
Yes.
Right? At the end,
There
is a rainbow of knowing, having a face and a name to her.
That is. There you go. There is a rainbow in here, guys. So I'm gonna plant a little kiss here for our girl, and just know you're loved. Nobody will ever forget about you, and at some point all of the truths will come out for you, Dawn. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.